The queen of sinking ships, Violet Jessup. She was on the Titanic when it hit an iceberg, on the Olympic when it crashed, and on the Britannica when it hit a German mine. All the events took place within 5 years. A coincidence? The twins who inspired Tim Burton to create the Gemini characters from Miss Peregrine's House of Strange Children, 1900. A boy undergoes dental examination at the London Friern Hospital, 1890-1910. Performance by students of the Glasgow School of Art, early 1900s. Conrad Veidt as Gwynplaine in the film The Man Who Laughs, 1928. This film, in turn, served as a source of inspiration for creating the image of the Joker in the comics. An early version by Ronald McDonald, date unknown. The first Ronald McDonald, played by Willard Scott in 1963, looked pretty creepy. He had a cup for a nose, a tray hat on which fast food appeared, and a magic belt. His appearance was significantly different from the modern, friendlier image. The last portrait of the Lawson family. This photo looks like an ordinary family portrait, and everything would have been fine if it weren't for the fact that this picture was taken just a few days before the father of the family, patriarch Charlie Lawson, second from right, killed all his relatives depicted in the photo on Christmas Day 1929. Only 16-year-old Arthur, left, managed to escape. Rescued East African slaves taken aboard the ship, Daphne, 1868 Atlantic slave trade. The picture was taken aboard a British ship, the Daphne. It depicts children rescued from being sold into captivity. A crying young Nazi. In the photo, a 16-year-old teenager is a member of a youth Nazi organization who learned about the Soviet Army's offensive on Berlin. He is overcome with horror and despair. The author of the picture is still unknown for sure. Either the photo was taken by one of the American photographers, John Florio, or William Vandevert, or by an unknown Soviet photographer. Fake beheading. English photographer William Sanders traveled to China, where he captured a fictitious beheading in public. He hoped to arouse Westerners' hostility to Asian customs and encourage them to bring civilization to China. The Stanford prison experiment began on August 14, 1971, after Philip Zimbardo, a professor of psychology at the university, divided the student volunteers into 2 groups. 11 of them became guards, and the remaining 10 became prisoners. The professor was interested in how they would behave in an artificial prison. The purpose of the experiment was to evaluate how quickly educated and intelligent people can become violent sadists under certain conditions. This would help to determine once and for all whether people are inherently good or evil. The experiment lasted only 6 days before it was stopped, but during this time, the guards repeatedly insulted and humiliated the prisoners by spraying them with fire extinguishers and forcing them to clean toilets with their bare hands. These creepy photos illustrate what humans are capable of. Radium girls. In the 1920s, no one knew about the danger of radium yet. Moreover, it was considered curative, and radium water was sold as a medicine, or just a preventive measure. There were even special radium dishes in use to infuse water at home on their own. But people were interested in radium not only because of its medicinal properties, it also glowed in the dark, so it was applied to the watch faces to make them convenient to use in the dark. And it was done manually by girls working at American watch factories. They licked the brushes and dipped them in radium powder, painted the dials, and then licked the brushes again. They were taught this algorithm right on the shop floor. As a result, their bones, particularly their jaw bones, began to become inflamed and break down, so they were often amputated. And of course, they died at a young age from cancer or radiation sickness. Propaganda against electricity, the 1900s. During the initial stages of the introduction of electricity, people often faced fires caused by faulty wiring or other problems related to the new technology. Such cases could generate fear and distrust of electricity, which led to negative propaganda. The mask of the plague doctor of the 16th century. The main purpose of this mask was to protect against miasma, a theory at the time that diseases spread through fetid air. The beak of the mask was filled with medicinal herbs such as mint, cloves, and others to purify the inhaled air. Linda Blair's makeup samples for the movie The Exorcist, 1973. The makeup, designed by Dick Smith, was aimed at conveying the physical and psychological changes taking place with the character. Prosthetics, special paints, and contact lenses were used to create the effect of pallor, bruising, rotting, and other signs of obsession. Special attention was paid to creating a frightening look and changing the contour of the face to emphasize the demonic influence. A 17th century metal mask that was worn by people who were considered insane. The Infernal Café in Paris, 1920s. The cafe was known for its creepy decoration, which included murals depicting writhing souls. It was part of an entertainment district that also housed cabarets and other adult entertainment venues. Interestingly, this cafe existed at the end of the 19th century during the time of the Third Republic. A woman in the Wild West wearing a mask designed to protect her skin from the sun. The moon from the 1902 French film Journey to the Moon. The moon is depicted as a human face, which is watching the approach of a space projectile crashing directly into its eye. This is a very recognizable image from the film, which has become one of the most iconic in the history of cinema. Children salute the American flag in front of a school in California, 1930s. Boxes with artificial eyes, 1938. During this period, there were also improvements in prosthetic manufacturing methods, including more precise fitting and painting to achieve maximum similarity with the real eye. 3 girls in costumes at a Halloween celebration in Cincinnati, Ohio. The year is 1929. Lubbock Lights. From August to September 1951, people observed glowing lights in the sky over Texas and New Mexico. A married couple on the outskirts of Albuquerque noticed an object above their house that looked like an airplane wing, and 20 minutes later, Lubbock residents saw a chain of bluish-green lights, and radars detected a moving object. Edward Ruppelt, head of the U.S. Air Force's Blue Book project, was assigned to investigate the incident. What these strange lights were is still unknown. Some believe that it is reflected light from migratory birds, others that it is lights in the fog, and others were sure that it was a UFO. In 2019, based on the investigation, the series Project Blue Book was released on the History Channel. The Phantom Girl from Krasnoyarsk. The creative director of one of the Krasnoyarsk companies contacted the local museum of local lore to find old photographs of the city for one of the projects. In more than 24 photographs, museum staff found the same girl with a long braid, an umbrella, in similar clothes, and with a detached expression on her face. To notice the figure of a mysterious stranger, sometimes you need to take a closer look. Some of the pictures are signed FEA, but there was not a single famous city photographer with such initials. The widow of Abraham Lincoln with her husband. Photographer William Mamler became the first person who managed to photograph the spirit. It was his cousin's ghost. The clientele flowed to Mamler like a river. With the help of double exposure, he received not only a photo of the client, but also the ghost of a close relative. He even managed to film Abraham Lincoln's widow, of course, with her husband behind her back. William Mamler was soon convicted of fraud, and the fascination with otherworldly photographs has come to naught. How do you feel about mystical and paranormal things? American soldiers watched the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, March 1944. Mount Vesuvius erupted on March 12-21, 1944, at the height of World War II. Giant plants at the waterfalls of Puahokamoa, the island of Maui, Hawaii, 1924. The man looks like an ant in the grass against the background of these giant burdocks. The photo shows the actors of the movie Freaks, shot in 1932 by director Todd Browning. These are real circus performers with innate features, people with nanism, microcephaly, without a lower body, a bearded woman, and others. The film became a scandal of its time. It was banned and cut, but later it gained cult status. Freaks turned the idea of the norm upside down. The real monsters were not heroes with special looks, but cruel, ordinary people. Photography has become a symbol of how cinema, for the first time, gave voice to those who had previously been hidden from society. The photo shows a contrasting pair from a late 19th century show. A man with gigantism and a man with nanism, dressed in stylized Chinese costumes. This is a picture taken at stereoscopic koi studio, approximately in the 1870s, 1880s. Such photographs were popular in the era of wonderful exhibitions. People with unusual looks often became part of circus or museum performances. The photo shows participants in the anti-alcohol movement in the United States at the beginning of the 20th century. They are holding a sign with the slogan, "Lips touching alcohol will not touch ours." It was a way of putting pressure on men during the struggle for sobriety that preceded prohibition. Women used morality, shame, and boycott as weapons against drunkenness. The picture became a symbol of the determination and rigor of those who fought for a sober nation. This vintage photo shows a rehearsal or backstage of a theatrical or circus performance, approximately from the 1920s and 1930s. Children dressed as wild animals, probably lion cubs or ragamuffins, look with interest at the cow, which is portrayed by two actors in a mask and costume. The photo shows a scene from a psychedelic experiment or session using sensory deprivation and sound, shot for Life magazine in the 1960s and 1970s. Men with their eyes closed, possibly using cups or a special mask. Headphones and bandages on their foreheads participate in a group exploring altered states of consciousness. Such practices were popular among psychonauts, hippies, and consciousness researchers. Their goal is to achieve deep experiences or meditative trance without external stimuli. This funny photo shows two women depicting a scene of sawing a leg with a fake saw. The picture was probably taken in the 1920s and 1930s, judging by the hairstyles, clothes, and shooting style. The photo shows a group of girls with rifles, circa the 1920s. The picture was taken in the USA and most likely captured a women's shooting club or self-defense courses, which was quite popular in that era. After the First World War and during the Prohibition years, women's organizations actively grew in the United States, where they taught how to shoot and defend themselves. This was especially true for college students and suburban women. For them, the ability to handle weapons became part of independence. This touching photo shows a small patient in a hospital bed on the street, surrounded by nurses and clowns. The picture was taken around the 1930s in the USA or Europe. Such events were organized as part of charity events. Sick children were taken out into the fresh air and delighted with performances. The photo shows the sisters Gertrude and May Gordon, artists of the early 20th century, known as the girls with the longest braid. Their distinctive feature was that they braided their thick hair into one common braid, connecting hairstyles, which created an unusual and memorable image. The photo shows a staged Victorian scene with the illusion of beheading, created using early photo montage, circa 1890-1910. Such images were popular as a joke or as a demonstration of the photographer's technical skills. Despite the gloomy look, it's just a double exposure game and the humor of the era. Many people know famous horror movie characters like Jason or Michael Myers, but the most iconic and terrifying is Freddy Krueger. In this old photograph, which may already seem eerie enough, there are only 3 children looking at the camera. However, in the background, you can spot a man frozen in a strange pose with a creepy grin, and he looks suspiciously like Freddy Krueger. Imagine you're walking through the city and suddenly stumble upon a strange notice. A small piece of white paper with handwritten text is stuck to the wall with a lump of oddly shaped clay. The message reads, "While you're reading this, there is a man standing at a window high above you, filming you. Later, he'll turn you into a little doll, seat you with others like you, and play strange games with them." By the time you finish reading the note, those words will likely stick in your mind. After all, you'll never know for sure if there really was someone watching, someone who might later play a horrifying game with your doll. Little is known about this photograph. A girl is seen browsing movies at a vending machine, while her head hangs unnaturally backward. Some believe a surveillance camera captured a girl possessed by demons. The true origin of the image as well as the circumstances under which it was taken, remain unknown. One thing is certain: no one can bend their head like that without suffering a serious injury. The Cooper family had just moved into their new home in Texas. To celebrate the housewarming, they set a festive table and decided to take a few family photos. But when the pictures were developed, a strange figure appeared. It looked like a body either hanging or falling from the ceiling. Naturally, the Coopers claimed they saw nothing unusual during the photo shoot. There are many events that mark the beginning of something important in life, and a wedding is one of the main ones. However, as this photograph shows, weddings don't always go as planned. While a happy couple was getting married in front of their house, a group of strangely dressed people stood behind them. Looking like members of some cult, they all turned and silently observed the unsuspecting guests and newlyweds. Among the vast collection of creepy items is a pair of gloves made from human skin. Ed Gein, known as the Butcher of Plainfield, who became infamous for his horrific crimes, made them from his victims. It's one thing to hear about madmen. It's another to see the results of their actions. The most horrifying detail is that the texture of human hands is clearly visible on the gloves. There is probably nothing more terrifying than realizing you are about to die. That's exactly what many victims of Auschwitz must have felt. When they were led into the chambers, people thought it was for something else. In reality, these were gas chambers, and once someone was inside, there was no way out. Photographs show scratch marks from victims' nails, people who realized they wouldn't escape and were already dying from the gas. This chilling frame was captured by a hospital surveillance camera just moments before a patient's death. Something dark and terrifying is seen standing on the bed, leaning over the patient. None of the hospital staff reported seeing anyone like that. It is believed that cameras may capture supernatural phenomena not visible to the human eye. When you see something like this, it's hard not to believe in the existence of spirits and demons around us. At first glance, there seems to be nothing strange about this Victorian-era photograph, which shows a father and mother with their daughter. However, the girl appears very sharp in the image, while her parents are blurry. This is actually one of the common post-mortem photos of that time. The girl had died shortly before from typhoid fever. 26-year-old Tina Watson died during her honeymoon on October 26, 2003, when divers accidentally discovered her body. After the wedding, Tina and her husband Gabe traveled to Australia, where they planned to go diving. According to the photographer who accompanied the couple, underwater, the man allegedly turned off his young wife's oxygen tank and held her down until she drowned. It later emerged that Tina Watson had recently taken out a new life insurance policy, which would have paid a substantial sum to Gabe in the event of her death. This led to suspicions of premeditated murder. Gabe served a year and a half in prison, returned to Alabama, and was later tried again. But the case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. Gabe Watson eventually remarried. Americans Sailor Gilliams and Brendan Vega went on a hike together in the Santa Barbara area, but due to inexperience, they got lost. With no cell signal, extreme heat, and no water, the girl became completely exhausted. Brendan went to find help, but slipped off a cliff and died. These photos were taken by a group of experienced hikers. After returning home, they noticed with horror a red-haired girl lying unconscious in the background of one of their photos. Rescuers were sent to the scene by helicopter, and sailors survived. The photo shows participants in a ritual dance from Papua New Guinea, or Melanesia, the beginning of the 20th century. People are dressed in costumes made of leaves and feathers. Their faces are hidden under masks with big eyes and hats. Such outfits were used in initiation ceremonies, spirit worship, or funeral ceremonies. The photo shows a group of people in homemade and funny costumes, presumably from the 1950s. They hold toy instruments and pose as a musical gang, which was a popular entertainment at house parties, Christmas pageants, or masquerades. In a photo from the beginning of the 20th century, a girl stands in a corner with dolls as if they were all being punished. The Titanic orphans, brothers Michael and Edmund Navratil, were the only children rescued from the Titanic without parents or guardians, 1912. The photo shows London, 1941, during the Second World War. A woman in a gas mask holds a baby in a special airtight capsule. a baby gas mask designed to protect against gas attacks. Such devices were used in Britain during air raids, especially during the Blitz period. The picture shows the fear and ingenuity of wartime. The photo shows Austrian inventor Franz Reichelt in his experimental flying suit. The picture was taken in 1912 in Paris. It was an early prototype of a parachute, which Reichelt designed in the form of a winged cape. He believed that his invention would allow people to safely jump from a height. Unfortunately, during a public test from the Eiffel Tower, he fell to his death. The suit did not open properly. The photo shows a circus performer without hands, who performed as part of the Algy, Barnes, and Sells Floto Combined Circus at the beginning of the 20th century. She holds the cup with her feet, demonstrating amazing agility and independence. The photo shows street performers on stilts in Berlin, circa 1930. The picture was taken by German photographer Willy Romer, a famous chronicler of the life of the Weimar Republic. A man and a woman are dancing on stilts right on a city street, next to an organ grinder with a jukebox. This is a vivid example of the street entertainment of the interwar period, when art came out to people directly on the pavements. The photo shows a meeting of two giant women and two dwarf men on the deck of a ship, probably in the 1910s and 1920s. The photo is related to the circus troupe's tour, which was common in Europe at that time. The photo shows James Morris, known as the Rubber Man, who performed in circuses and fairs in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He had a rare condition, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, in which the skin becomes excessively elastic. Thanks to this, he could stretch his skin to an unnatural length, astounding the audience. The photo shows the famous entertainment machine called Enigma Rel, introduced around 1906 by Frederick Ireland. At first glance, it was a miracle android of the early 20th century. He could write, walk, and even ride a bicycle. The audience was amazed by its capabilities. But later, it turned out that Enigma Rel is not a mechanism at all, but a man disguised as an automaton. Most often, the role was played by a man with amputated legs, hidden inside a suit. The photo shows an unusual invention, a water scooter based on a scooter, riding on the surface of the water. The picture was taken in the 1960s in Brighton, UK. The invention was called the amphibious scooter. It was an experimental project where an ordinary scooter was mounted on a floating platform with an engine that allows you to ride on water. Despite the entertainment, the device did not receive mass use. It was too unstable and difficult to control. The photo shows a circus strongman of the early 20th century, demonstrating incredible strength, holding a barbell with two seated women at arm's length. Such pictures were popular during the golden age of the circus, 1890-1930, when strongmen and athletes performed in costumes with elements of classical gymnastics and wrestling aesthetics. The photo shows Weston Walker and his assistant, late 19th century. These are the participants of the famous walking adventure, Around the World Walking Match, walking around the world with a wheelchair, for which a bet of $21,000 was placed, a huge amount for that time. In the photo, one of the famous giant soldiers circus or exhibition, shows of the late 19th, early 20th century. A man in uniform, wearing a tall hat and carrying a cane, poses next to a man of normal height to enhance the contrast. The photo shows a rare portrait from the end of the 19th century, depicting two people with contrasting growth characteristics. One suffers from gigantism, the other from dwarfism. The picture was probably taken in a studio and was intended for circus posters or collectible cards. The photo shows a man next to a female mannequin, or possibly an android of the early 20th century. The picture is made in the style of the 1910s and 1920s. The man in the bathrobe is probably a creator or a technician demonstrating his work. The photo shows Mimi Garneau, one of the few female fakirs of the 20th century, performing a dangerous circus trick, swallowing a metal hook. The picture was presumably taken in the 1950s. The photo shows the so called largest violin, although it is more similar in design to a giant double bass or octobass. The picture was taken in the USA in the early 1920s. The photo shows a scene with a blind pianist and an assistant, both blindfolded, approximately the beginning of the 20th century. It's probably a circus or variety act, demonstrating phenomenal coordination, hearing, or telepathy, as was often claimed back then. The photo shows children in a classroom, but they are all wearing children's gas masks, which creates an ominous atmosphere. The picture was probably taken in Europe in the 1930s and 40s during the Second World War, or its run-up. Such training was a common practice in schools. Children were taught to wear gas masks in case of a gas attack. The photo shows two amputated women using mechanical prostheses and a suspension system for eating and writing. The picture was taken in the USA in the 1940s and 50s, probably in a rehabilitation center after the polio epidemic. Polio affected the nervous system and often led to paralysis. These early prosthetics were primitive but important steps in restoring patients' autonomy. In the photo, the giant Ernesto and Princess Tiny, popular artists of the early 20th century. Their contrasting sizes made them the stars of circus shows. Such duets caused amazement and became a symbol of the era of spectacular freak shows. Here is a stage production from the beginning of the 20th century, a cartoon boxing match between the fattest and thinnest actors of the show. In the photo, a man with a prosthetic leg and a cane poses in a studio at the beginning of the 20th century. His mechanical orthopedic design is one of the earliest examples of medical innovations of the time, allowing people with disabilities to regain mobility after injuries or amputations. The photo shows a man with a huge boa constrictor wrapped around his neck and body. Such portraits were popular in the Victorian era as part of circus shows or cabinets of curiosities. The photo shows a group of people in helmets, stylized as artillery shells, with slits in the form of faces from old engravings. The photo parodies Lucy's Booth from the Peanuts comics with the caption, "Psychiatric help, Wosisto." Instead of a girl, there is a clown offering psychiatric help in a desert area, probably at the Burning Man festival. In the photo is Martha, known as the Armless Wonder. She was one of the famous participants in American slideshows of the early 20th century. Despite the absence of hands, Martha wrote, embroidered, smoked, and performed complex footwork, which caused amazement and respect among the audience. Her performances were not just a sensation, but also a symbol of the power of human will. The photo shows a giant sturgeon caught at the beginning of the 20th century. Such fish could reach more than 3 meters in length and weigh over 500 kilos. Sturgeons were especially valued for their caviar, and their extraction was a lucrative but rare event. The people in the picture are fishermen and fishmongers posing with their catch at the supplier's car. The photo shows a man with phenomenal joint flexibility. He bends his arms and fingers into unusual positions, which may be a sign of hypermobility, for example, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or simply the result of trained plastic surgery. The man in the middle demonstrates incredible strength by holding two adult men in the air by their suspenders. Early 20th century. The photo shows the famous Siamese twins, Violet and Daisy Hilton, born in 1908 and fused in the pelvis and sacrum. They became famous vaudeville and film performers in the 1920s and 30s. A man kisses one of the sisters, while the other one smiles. 4 actors play an eccentric situation where one man finds himself on a girl's lap, in a punishment pose, while the rest feign surprise or joy. Such shots were popular in advertisements and promo materials for comedy shows or movies, reflecting the ideas of humor and the relationship between the sexes at that time. This picture is a typical example of the competitive culture of the 1920s and 40s, especially in the USA and Europe, when mass beauty contests were held. The photo shows one of the stages of the swimsuit competition, where the jury, a man in a suit, evaluates the participants from behind, often touching their bodies, which was considered acceptable by the standards of the time. Such scenes are now being criticized because of the obvious objectification of women. But at the time they were perceived as part of an aesthetic assessment, or even a show. In the photo is Ian Cannon, the Dutch giant known as the Dutch Colossus. He weighed 738 pounds, approximately 335 kWh, and had a waist circumference of 242 cm. At the beginning of the 20th century, his figure caused amazement and admiration, and he became a celebrity at circuses and fairs. The picture shows a Japanese soldier without arms, learning kendo using a special design that attaches a sword to his forearms. The photo was taken in post-war Japan and demonstrates amazing fortitude and the desire to restore martial skills even after severe injuries. The photo shows a circus performer with unusually developed legs, probably suffering from gigantism or lipedema. Such performers were popular in Victorian sideshows and freaks, where physical anomalies were demonstrated. The image is carefully stylized. The costume, pose, and studio setting emphasize the effect of strangeness. This rare archive photo shows a man skating on ice skates, which are attached to his legs using long supports. This design may have been used in a circus or variety show to impress the audience with an unusual trick. Judging by the costume, the photo belongs to the first half of the 20th century. The photo shows the eccentric artist Lady Alice with her trained pets, a picture of the early 20th century, circa 1920, made by Moody Studio. On the table next to her, there are cats, dogs, and even chickens, and in her hand, she holds a rat. All the animals look calm and obedient, as if they are ready for the show. The photo shows the famous Siamese twins, Violet and Daisy Hilton, born in 1908 and fused in the pelvis and spine. They became famous as variety show performers, singers, and actresses, often appearing in freak shows in the 1920s and 30s. The picture captured them during a public celebration. The girls are feeding a cake to two gentlemen. Probably this is a promotional photo or part of a performance. The photo shows a seller of Edison phonographs, late 1990s, early 25th century. There are sound recording cylinders on the table, and next to it is the phonograph itself, with a large horn tube to amplify the sound. These cylinders were the first sound carrier in the history of audio recording. A man poses, demonstrating the technological miracle of that time, probably in a trading floor or at an exhibition. The photo shows a bearded woman, one of the classic images of the so-called circus freaks, freak show, of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Such artists, as a rule, suffered from hypertrichosis, a rare genetic disease that causes excessive hair growth throughout the body, including the face. The photo shows an experimental medical or scientific device of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, designed to affect humans with electricity or electromagnetic fields. The man is standing inside a large spiral, or coil. This is probably a Tesla induction coil, or a similar system used for demonstration or therapy. The photo shows a rare Esso advertising vending machine from the 1950s, used at gas stations to dispense engine oil. A man in a uniform takes out a jar through a special hole, demonstrating the convenience and adaptability of the service. Such devices emphasize the brand's progressivity and became a symbol of the American car culture of the mid-20th century. In the photo, an illusionist demonstrates the levitation effect, typical of stage tricks of the mid-20th century. The woman floats in the air, seemingly leaning on only one cane. This is a classic trick built on a hidden metal structure, disguised as a prop and a suit. The picture shows a woman from the time of the First World War, cooking fresh donuts for soldiers. These women were called donut girls and worked as part of the Salvation Army. Their care, homemade cakes, and warm words raised the morale on the front line. The photo shows actress Patricia Priest as Marilyn Munster from the cult 1960s TV series The Munsters. She poses by the famous Munster family car, the Munster Coach, created especially for the show. Elegant and normal, Marilyn contrasted sharply with the rest of the monster characters, which made her the black sheep in the family. The photo shows a touching moment. An elderly man hugs a girl, whose legs are fixed in metal braces. This is one of the symbolic shots of the 1940s and 50s, when thousands of children in the United States were recovering from polio. The man may be one of the doctors, patrons, or representatives of the foundation who helped with the treatment. In the photo, an engineer controls giant manipulators through an exoskeleton connected to the General Electric handyman system. The picture was taken in the late 1950s. These early experiments with remote control and amplification of human movements became the basis for future robotics and military technologies. The photo shows a man with a can of the original play, Dough, on the background of stacked boxes. The picture was taken in the 1960s at Rainbow Crafts Inc., a Play-Doh manufacturing company in Cincinnati, Ohio. Initially, the mask was used as a wallpaper cleaner, but has become a cult toy thanks to reinvention and marketing. A 1937 photo shows a behind-the-scenes moment from The Barnum and Bailey Show. Dwarf actor Harry Earls talks with office worker Egan Twist backstage at Madison Square Garden. The photo shows legendary illusionist Harry Houdini inside a huge milk canister, preparing for one of his most famous escape stunts. This trick, first introduced in 1908, involved Houdini, handcuffed, completely burrowing into the water inside an airtight container from which he had to get out without assistance. Houdini's courage, technique, and composure have made him an icon in the history of magic. In the photo is Robert Wadlow, the tallest man in history, whose officially registered height was 270 cm. The picture was taken in 1938 at the Western Military Academy in Upper Alton, Illinois. Despite his size, Wadlow remained humble and friendly, and his height was the result of pituitary hyperplasia, a rare condition that causes excessive production of growth hormone. In the photo, an American soldier from World War II poses next to models of aerial bombs of various sizes. Most likely, this is a training image used to demonstrate the scale of various types of ammunition. On the left is a giant inert training dummy simulating a super heavy aerial bomb. Such scenes were part of propaganda and technical instruction during the heyday of military aviation and the beginning of the nuclear age. During the Great Depression, thousands of people were desperately looking for work. The photo shows a man with a sign, begging for work, not for charity. He lived in Detroit, had no money, and was willing to provide recommendations. It's a reflection of desperation and dignity at the same time. He's not asking for handouts, he wants to work. This rare image captures a mechanic performing engine repairs right in the air, hanging from the outside of the fuselage without any insurance. At that time, the technology was so unreliable that such operations in flight were not uncommon. This photo has become a symbol of the fearlessness and dedication of the people who stood at the origins of aviation engineering. The photo shows 16-year-old David Bowie, then still David Jones, as part of his first band, the Conrads. A stylish suit, a saxophone, and a signature pose. Already in his youth, he felt the future icon of style and the avant-garde. To the operator of the control panel at the power plant, one to the 1930s, a man in a glove turns levers and valves on a massive control panel that resembles a dashboard from a science fiction movie. This is a real control panel for high-voltage equipment, the heart of the early electric power industry, where one turn could change the work of an entire city. This image shows an artist in a blackface costume and makeup, a form of racist grotesque popular in the United States from the 19th century to the middle of the 20th century. White actors applied black paint and exaggerated caricatures of black characters. Such performances were considered entertainment and were massively broadcast in theater, cinema, and television, playing a key role in perpetuating racial stereotypes. The photo shows an outdated medical method known as the rabbit test. To determine pregnancy, a woman was injected with the hormone HCG, after which changes in the animal's body were observed. If the rabbit had changes in the ovaries, the test was considered positive. Although the method was accurate, it required the sacrifice of an animal. This procedure was widely used in Europe and the United States before the first non-invasive pregnancy tests appeared in the 1960s. The picture shows the tragic moment when the police shoot an elephant that escaped from the arena. At the beginning of the 20th century, such incidents were not uncommon. Animals suffering from abuse often got out of control. Physical exercises for prisoners, Germany, 1946. After World War II, former members of the Nazi Party were subjected not only to interrogations, but also to a mandatory re-education program. This photo shows one of these procedures. Physical activity as a method of discipline and control. The atmosphere is strict, the clothes are the same, the movements are coordinated. The Perfect Baby, USA, 1925. The photo shows the winner of one of the numerous healthiest child contests popular in the USA in the 1920s. These contests were held under the auspices of the eugenics movement. Children were evaluated by facial symmetry, physique, and even the shape of their heads. The oldest trousers in the world, China, about 3300 BC. In front of you is a pair of wool trousers found in a tomb in western China, in the Turfan Trench. These pants were hand, sewn and decorated with geometric patterns. Not just utilitarian clothes, but an item with elements of style. Scientists believe that they belonged to a horseman, and the design of the trousers was adapted for comfortable riding. Original 3-day ticket to the Woodstock Festival, 1969. The photo shows an authentic ticket to the legendary Woodstock Music Festival, which took place on August 15th and 17, 1969. The cost is only $18 for 3 days. This artifact has become a symbol of an entire era: hippies, rock and roll, and anti-war movements. Portrait of a World War I veteran before and after facial reconstruction, circa 1918. The photo shows a man with a severe facial injury sustained at the front. On the left is his real condition after injury. On the right is the result of the work of the first prosthetics and medical artists who created masks and pads to return soldiers to human appearance. The Princess Diana Lookalike Contest, Great Britain, circa 1983. The photo shows the participants of an unusual competition, where the jury chose the girl who looked most like Princess Diana. In the 1980s, Dianomania swept the world. Her style, hairstyle, and smile became a symbol of the era. Agent 86's spy shoes from the TV series Get Smart, USA, 1965. The picture shows actor Don Adams as Maxwell Smart, the hero of the satirical spy series Get Smart. His phone in a shoe became a TV comedy icon of the 1960s. Mocking the genre of spy films, the show ridiculed super technology and Cold War paranoia. John Wojtiewicz's mugshot, the real hero of the movie Dog Noon, USA, 1972. Here is a photograph of John Wojtowicz taken by the FBI after his arrest on August 23, 1972. He became famous after an unsuccessful bank robbery in Brooklyn, which he committed to pay for his partner's sex reassignment surgery. This story formed the basis of the movie Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino. Wojtowicz himself later said that the film conveyed everything almost verbatim. An incredible costume from the Ziegfeld Follies show, New York, 1920s. The photo shows the actress of one of the most famous revues, Ziegfeld Follies, who performed on Broadway. The shows were famous for their lavish costumes, and this is one of the most extravagant. A huge crown-shaped headdress with feathers, sequins, and fur. Such costumes were so heavy and bulky that the artists learned to move anew, balancing on heels with a design that sometimes weighed up to 20 kilotyu. Testing of a heavy-duty antenna in a circular reflector, USA, 1960s. This is not the setting of a science fiction movie, but a real engineering structure, a giant circular radio reflector for testing a military antenna. Built in the USA in the 1960s, it served to test the stability of radio signals and directional radiation in an enclosed space. The cars in the photo emphasize the scale. The inner diameter of the structure exceeded 60 meters. The photo shows German soldiers crossing the river on a makeshift raft with an MG-34 machine gun mounted. Photography demonstrates desperate ingenuity and adaptation to field conditions. The raft is made of boxes, planks, and a tarpaulin, with the flag of the Third Reich as a sail. One of the first Soviet space dogs in a training suit, 1950s. The picture shows an astronaut dog in an airtight training capsule designed to simulate flight conditions. The USSR actively used dogs to test the safety of space missions. A session of spiritualism with a levitating mandolin, circa 1900. In this photo, a group of people are sitting at a table, participating in a seance that was fashionable at that time. There was a mysterious detail in the background, A mandolin seemed to float in the air, which was supposed to indicate the presence of spirits. In the era of the Victorian obsession with the afterlife, such photo shoots were often carefully planned hoaxes. The photo shows Norwegian-American immigrant Hans Langseth, the owner of the longest beard officially recorded in history, 533 meters. He started growing a beard in 1865 and never cut it. Langseth was not only a record holder, but also a true icon of the era. He performed at fairs and in museums of curiosities, where his beard was considered a natural wonder. Beard of Bees, USA, circa the 1930s. The photo shows a man covered with a dense layer of bees, which creates the impression of a living beard. This effect is achieved with the help of a queen bee, which is placed on the body, usually in a small cage under the chin, causing a cluster of worker bees around it. This unusual trick was popular among beekeepers, showmen, and participants of fairs in the first half of the 20th century. Extravagant horse racing glasses, Great Britain, 1930s. The photo shows two gentlemen with unusual devices on their faces. These are experimental binocular hats, invented for comfortable observation of horse racing. The design combines a cylinder with a lens on a long stand and a special visor holder in front of the eyes, which made it possible to follow what was happening on the racetrack without raising your head or getting tired of the sun. Dancers of the Seri tribe in ritual masks made of grass, Mexico, early the 21st century. This is a rare photo of representatives of the Seri Indian tribe living in northwestern Mexico. The men are depicted in traditional ritual costumes with masks woven from grass and bark. Such outfits were used during rituals dedicated to the spirits of nature, where the mask symbolized merging with the environment. Ritual dances took place near the water or in a deserted area, which emphasizes the spiritual connection with the earth and the elements. An experiment with drafting, a cyclist behind the windshield of a car, France, 1938. This rare photo captures a unique experiment. A French cyclist rides in the aerodynamic shadow of a large shield attached to a car. Such a device was created to reduce air resistance, drafting, so that the athlete could develop the maximum possible speed. These tests were conducted in the 1930s to explore the limits of human endurance and aerodynamics. The driver and assistant in the convertible controlled the distance and direction. There was a reverse gear somewhere. Cadillac in the Pool, USA, 1950s. This photo is a typical example of the surrealism of everyday life in post-war America. People in shorts, stairs by the pool, and a luxury car submerged underwater, probably a Cadillac Eldorado. The reasons are unknown: a parking error, a prank at a party, or an unsuccessful demonstration of power. The men in the photo look more puzzled than scared. Scandal in the open field, the Black Sox team, 1919. This historical photograph shows the Chicago White Sox baseball team, with the initials Sox on the uniform, famous for its participation in one of the largest sports scandals of the 20th century, the Black Sox case. In 1919, 8 gamblers were accused of deliberately losing the World Series finals in exchange for bribes from the betting mafia. Despite their subsequent acquittal in court, all of them were disqualified from baseball for life. Flying over Manhattan without insurance and common sense. The photo shows a blood-curdling trick. A woman in a swimsuit is hanging from a rope, hanging from a helicopter, hovering over New York City. The iconic skyscrapers of Manhattan, including the Empire State Building, are in the background. The photo shows a terrifying silhouette of a wooden figure with a raised arm. This is not an art object or a monument. This is the entrance arch of one of the Gulag camps in Siberia, the 1930s. The figure resembles a human, but it is made roughly as if from boxes and boards, and this only enhances the eerie impression. She greets the prisoners not with a word, but with a mute, ominous gesture. Here is your end. In the distance are the pipes of industrial furnaces and barracks. The photo shows the experimental Kalakala ferry, launched in Seattle in 1935. Its streamlined aluminum hull and Art Deco portholes gave the ship the appearance of an interplanetary transport, more appropriate in lunar orbit than in the waters of Puget Sound. The photo shows French soldiers of the late 19th century with an unusual means of transportation: penny farthings. These giant front-wheel bicycles were once considered a technological breakthrough. armies tried to introduce them into intelligence and courier services, hoping to replace horses and shorten travel time. The photo shows an early experiment in underwater photography. Inside the diver's helmet is the legendary Leica camera, mounted precisely in the viewing window. This unusual solution allowed the photographer to use the protection of a deep-sea helmet as an improvised enclosure. These early attempts to capture the underwater world were dangerous and inconvenient, but they paved the way for modern action cameras and aquaboxes. This picture from the 1940s shows a training class where American students learn the basics of piloting on wooden airplane simulators called the Penguin Trainer. These devices couldn't fly, just like penguins, but they helped students get used to steering, pedaling, and navigation even before real flights. On board a late 19th century ship, a group of British sailors passed the time between watches. One of them, probably a petty officer or a veteran, tells a story. From the expressions on their faces, it is clear that the listeners are either amused or have already heard it more than once. The photo on the left shows a rare portrait of a modestly dressed young man who had not previously been associated with the Wild West. On the right is an iconic image, an armed and defiant Billy the Kid, in the only Lifetime photograph recognized as authentic. But in 2014, a picture was found on the left, presumably depicting the same person at an earlier age. The similarities in the facial features caused a wave of controversy. Was this really the young Billy the Kid before he became a symbol of lawlessness on the border? Photo, circa 1879-1880. September 1953. The photo shows one of the most famous marriages of the 20th century. John F. Kennedy, then a senator from Massachusetts, and Jacqueline Bouvier, a former journalist, cut the wedding cake at the reception, accompanied by a bridesmaid. This day became the starting point, not only for their family life, but also for a political dynasty that went down in the history of the United States. In 7 years, he would become president, and she would become America's most elegant First Lady. Photo, September 12, 1953. This rare shot shows the Victory Day Parade in Paris in 1919. French Renault FT light tanks are moving along the Champs-Élysées, embodying a new era of mechanized warfare. But suddenly, a figure gets into the lens. A man on a bicycle slowly crosses the path of a column of combat vehicles. He is not a participant in the parade, just a citizen, as if he happened to be at a historical moment. Paris, 1919. This historical photograph shows Howard Carter, Sender, the English archaeologist who discovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun in 1922. He and his assistant look inside a carved shrine hidden in the depths of the Valley of the Kings. 1968, Mexico City. The picture shows American boxer Joe Frazier in a sombrero and with a poncho on his shoulders, barely making his way through the enthusiastic crowd. It's not just applause, it's the jubilation of an entire nation. The photo shows the famous atomic bomb, Fat Man, dropped on the city of Nagasaki on August 9, 1945. Its shape seems almost caricatured, but behind this absurd silhouette lies one of the most devastating moments in human history. It was this bomb that ended World War II and ushered in the nuclear era, an era in which humanity realized for the first time that it could destroy itself.